And now filters, namely high pass filters and low pass filters. I've set them up all the same. They're two filters, high pass 12 dB per octave at 400 Hertz and low pass 12 dB per octave at 4700 Hertz. We're going to compare everything against the Masterburg DesignWorks EQ6. That's going to give us, a way to compare as we've done with shelves and bells. Now, the EQ6, I'm going to point out differences in each of the EQs. Starting with EQ6, we have 6, 12, 18, and 24 dB per octaves on both extreme bands, high pass and low pass. It just doesn't matter. You can set up a low pass or a high pass in extreme opposite bands. And there's also high pass and low passes, 6 and 12, however, for band 2, 3, and 4. We're going to do our first comparison with the Fab filter, who's set the same, 400 Hertz, 4700, both 12 dB per octave. And as we can see, and I'm telling you from here, I can't hear it, we got around minus 98, minus 94 dB FS in the null. Multicore tells us, dude, this is +1, doesn't really matter. And they sound pretty much identical because they don't sound, we get almost a perfect null. This is what I would expect because most filters are not too creative, but there's plugins who sometimes give us a little bit of a different phase response or some kind of different slope, right? What you can do in the Fab Filter Pro Q3 is not only you can set filters for as much as you want, you have a wider choice range. So you got 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 48, 72, and then you get 96 and brick wall. You see how different the brick wall is, right? Now, this is natural phase. Both are natural phases. And if you go linear, obviously something like an elliptical filter that way could be problematic, but it's nice. In the Fab Filter Pro Q3, we obviously expected that, right? A lot more control. Now we're going to try and go MGW EQ6 against the Matte EQ Blue. And here we got pretty much around 84, still the same kind of nulling, I would say. I can't hear it. It's barely audible if I really know something's playing in the background, but honestly, I can't really hear it. And there's oversample on. What the EQ Blue has is it's got two types of high pass and low pass. They're called low cut 1 and 2 and high cut 1 and 2. Now the version 1, as I said, is specifically designed for phase coherence because this is minimum phase, but still we have a way to really smoothen out the extremes without getting a lot of phase alteration. The EQ, the low pass and high pass 2 allow us to fiddle with the Q. And the 0.71 is what resembles the Masterburg. And obviously you can go resonant and you can go, with a different slope up until 0.30. This is not possible on the EQ6. You can only go 6, 12, 18, 24, right? You can see it here. For how versatile that is, the EQ Blue offers a little bit more range. So the next comparison is going to be the E Pure. Now the E Pure has a low cut that is fixed. We can't actually change the low factors. So how do they sound one against each other? Okay, here I can tell there's, even if multi-core has moved to +1, so it's telling us as usual, yo, full nulling. No, I can actually hear the top of the kick and the snare hits. So these transits are passing through, although I am at 4,700 and 400 Hertz. So this should be the same. There's no changes in gain, nothing else. So this could be ever so slightly different change. These are probably the filters that have the least flexibility of all, but still I've used them tons of times and they do the job. Now, Mac DSP. For Mac DSP, we cannot use P606 because in the bundle of Filter Bank, we got actually three plugins, and one of them is the F202. This is just filters. So I've set them 12, 400, 12, 4700. How do they sound one against each other? Same deal here. As with the ePure, I hear the kick maybe ever so slightly louder. The kick hits and the snares passing through. So it could be a matter of dealing with the Q, maybe just ever so slightly, but here you have variable, resonant, high pass, and low pass. These I've used tons of times because they allow me to do a little bit more sound design, right? They're pushing more towards just sounding because of that resonance point. Now we go to the master Q2. Again, 400, 4.7. And here I can't hear anything. No, I would say just because I know it's playing, maybe it's placebo, but this is nulling at what? Minus 85. So we're barely there, but it's around the 400 hertz. All of the highs are tamed. 400 hertz, 0.71. We're there. There's no difference. Okay, if I disengage FAT, I can now hear kicks and snares, although less than the flux and the F202. But with FAT engaged, we're kind of there. Still full phase coherence. There's nothing major going on, but I can sometimes hear it. Now, Studio EQ. Oh, Master Q offers you, as you've seen, 0.71 as a standard to 2.83 resonant and then down. So this is the one without being as flexible as Pro Q3 as the one that, like Matte EQ Blue, offers us very, very low slope Qs. So this is kind of interesting to know. Now the Studio EQ has variable Qs. So 400, 4.70, let's hear it. Masterberg versus the Studio EQ. This is Nuendo's and Cubase's default EQ. Okay, here I can hear highs. Multi-core gives us a +1, but I can hear kicks and snares. The kick is almost inaudible, but there's a little bit of bite from the point, but not as much as the flux or the Mac DSP. There's just a little bit, yes. So they're not nulling. Our nulling point is around -72, but these lower parts jumps up with transients. So this is it. Well, you got variable Q and you've got variable frequencies. It doesn't get low slope as the Q Blue or the Master Q and always as the Fab filters, but it gets pretty resonant. So for a track EQ, this is as usual, very, very nice. Works really nicely. Now the Kirchhoff, I've engaged 2 times oversampling. You'll hear why. They match. Do they match? Let's try it out. They're the farthest apart. And I've checked these 300 times. 400 hertz, Q1, slope. Let's try and go maybe 0.71. Doesn't work, right? So we gotta move the Q around here. So now I hear highs. Obviously, if I hear highs, I go and touch the low pass and vice versa. But there's no way these work, actually. So 400, 470. Okay, it's getting there. without the 2 times, you hear how different oversampling makes things sound. It's not just, oh, artifacts and stuff. Sometimes it's the entire calculation just gets a completely different twist. This is probably the least nulling of all, but you know, I just reworked it a little bit and it was kind of there. Now the Oxford, again 400 versus the EQ6. And even here, I can hear a little bit of the kick, not as much as the Flux, not as much as the F202 by Mac DSP. I would say there's actually a little bit of low mids, but very gentle. And I would say it's close to the Master Q. But no, these I can clearly hear. There's something in there. So what these offers is very similar to what the Massenburg does, but we've got a little bit more choices. So 6, 12, 18, 6, 12, 18, 24, but the 30 and 36 are additional ones. And I don't remember if the console had it, but we got these 2 additional choices. So again, for tracks, I need a little bit more. The Massenburg just doesn't push towards that. But there's also a sort of a philosophy against extreme phasing coherences, right? So it does its own thing just because it's got that philosophy behind. I think the best word is philosophy. So definitely the most versatile that you can get are, as usual, the Fab Filter and the 3-body Tech Kirchhoff EQ. These have all the brick walls, all the different type of even tilt shifting or bandpass, actually. So you're introducing phase shifting through pure bandpass. And the Kirchhoff also have a wall EQ, which, as we said, with the FabFilter Pro Q, it's called the brick wall. So they might be even super close. This is where, if you want to be versatile, you're going to go with that one. The least amount of choices, definitely ePure. It's just, those are what you get. Then there's the matte and the PSP, which offers variable, very low slope filters, very phase respectful. Then there's, I would say, the Massenburg, and also probably Filter Bank could be put around the Massenburg. Reason being that, yes, I can pick different types, but there's not many, and all I have more is just the additional Q. So it's an in-betweener. The Studio EQ for Cubase Innuendo offers not a lot of stuff, doesn't get too gentle, but it can go resonant. And the Oxford, as we said, is pretty much on par with the Massenburg, but has these 2 additional stages. So I would say for filters, unless you want to go super crazy, all of these EQs are gonna get you where you want to go.